Awesome. So hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us from across the world and in different time zones. My name is Adira Ragiv, and I'm a principal group program manager. I lead the program management team for Power BI data flows. And Anton Fritz is a senior PM on my team. And we're really excited to present data flows to you today. It's actually a new capability we introduced for public preview last week. And for those of you, if any, who joined past Summit last week, we presented that there as well. And you can also access the Power BI blog to read more in depth the blog about it that we published last week. And there's a lot of online documentation, white paper describing that, and so forth. So a lot of written references to dive into later on once you want to put this into action within your orgs. But today we wanted to brief you through it and tell you about these capabilities and how we believe they can make your data prep life and yielding business insights an easier one. So that's it for the intro. Hope we both have a long background behind us of previous roles, but I think we can jump right into business here with data flows. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
That okay?
That's absolutely perfect. Yes.
Okay, great. So I assume some of you have seen this slide or in some of the previous sessions that or in previous conferences, but this digital feedback loop is actually a loop that we talk a lot about, both in BI groups and both in the BI group, but also in the business applications world as well. The fact of having products out there which produce product telemetry, the fact that we are getting multiple customer signals from customer, and when I say we, it's each and every one of you in your organizations as well. The ability to yield data and intelligence, collect the data and yield intelligence out of all of these signals, and to be able to empower employees further to transform and improve the products, to get those customer signals and create intelligent and productive customer engagements. All of this digital feedback loop is one of the main challenges that the digital world is actually looking into today, and that many organizations face this kind of challenge in their day-to-day and in their attempt to improve their overall products and customer engagements and empower their employees. And with that in mind, and with that mission of collecting data and yielding impactful and valuable intelligence out of that, we have to look into what are the modern BI challenges today, what each and every org faces in that world. So thinking about those business analysts out there and the data scientists, they face a few very meaningful challenges, where the first one is that a lot of the data that they try to collect from those various signals and challenges is fragmented, is really incomplete. Pulling together data from various multiple channels, some of them are cloud, some of them are on-prem, sort of figuring out how to merge them all together into something meaningful is the first challenge being handled. The other is that it's not really a self-service thing today. It requires a real special skill set and a team of specialists to create those end-to-end BI solutions, and leveraging multiple BI tools often. So it's usually dependent and sometimes even bottlenecked on a certain team who does that kind of data prep and data yielding and intelligence yielding, and creating those complex integrations to create a meaningful end-to-end BI solution. The third thing is that a lot of the business data usually doesn't have any structural or semantic consistency. You connect to various data sources, as I mentioned earlier. Some of them might be business data sources like a CRM system with a certain schema to it. So others might be data that you're gathering in your Azure database, in CSVs, in multiple channels, and each of them have sort of their own set of entities and structure, and being able to make sense out of it all and create some semantic consistency out of it, and you build the insights on top of those, is where a lot of the effort goes into. And last, that aspect of leveraging multiple tools, and sometimes leveraging other tools which are not BI specific, but you need them to transfer data, to handle large scale, all those. It creates those really complex system integrations and being able to share data between them. And it also yields and requires a lot of system design and architecture, because once you have the data moving from one place to another, and you have dependencies of, well, I want to build a report that's based on another report, a data set that's based on another data set, you sort of have to start managing the dependencies between them. When will I refresh data set A? And then will that trigger data set B? Or I'll have to make sure to refresh that as well. And just, I'm mentioning here just a few of the challenges, but I assume many of you live that in your day-to-day. And if not, then you get the picture that data prep today is one of the most time-consuming tasks in analytics BI. And that's a known fact that in all the major articles and evaluations, it's a main point that keeps going on. And when we were looking in Power BI about how we can help our customers with building their end-to-end BI solutions and with achieving that digital feedback loop that I mentioned just a slide ago, we understood that with the platform that we provide today, and with the traditional BI platforms out there, if we have a look at those, you have a real clear layer of the data visualization. In Power BI, you have reports today and dashboards, and allowing all the dashboard consumers and CEOs and so forth to consume those very easily. There's a layer to model the data, leveraging desktop and building leveraging Power Query within desktop to build those data sets and the reports on top. And they connect to gateways and connectors. But there isn't actually a dedicated layer that helps you do all that data prep. So a lot of the data prep is being done today in Power Query within the desktop. Power Query is an awesome tool for a lot of data prep capabilities, and as I'll show you in a minute, we leverage Power Query as well. But it does mean that you have to do a lot of your data prep logic, such as cleansing the data, enriching it, merging it. You have to actually do a lot of that data over and over again in each of your data sets. So for instance, if you're creating 5 data sets that need to leverage your CRM data, and it requires some data prep and mapping to standard schema, creating that consistency, and sometimes merging it with other data sources, you have to do a lot of that work over and over in each of those data sets. The processing that happens around it over and over again, the refreshes of those data sets for those 5 different data sets. Instead of actually adding a dedicated data prep layer that would help you take care of prepping the data once before actually creating multiple models and leveraging your prep data over and over again. And that's what we come to solve today with data flows. So if I check out the things that we put as an objective to help solve with data flows, and I'll touch on items here, and soon you'll see a live demo to help you visualize that as well. But we wanted to keep in mind and enable you by providing a self-service experience, low code or no code, leveraging actually the known and familiar Power Query for a lot of your data prep operations. We wanted to preserve the ability to connect to both cloud and on-premise connectors precisely like desktop can connect today. We wanted the ability, once we helped you prep that data, and opening a parenthesis for a minute, we save all that data for you in a storage, in a Power BI provided storage, without additional cost. It's part of what we provide right now to our Pro and Premium users, which is where dataflows is enabled. So we help you land that data after being prepped into the storage, but later on you can actually generate new insights on top of those and enrich those further and add additional computations on data which is saved in the storage. And the way we do that is by supporting what we call in-lake transformation. So you can actually reference an entity, the way we call it, like account in the CRM world, which is now saved. That data is saved in your storage, and we will help you perform additional computations and enrich that account to be able to be reused over and over again. We wanted that standard schema because as I mentioned earlier, there's a lack of consistency today between sources. So you have the option today to map your various data sources into one common schema. And some of you may have heard of the common data model. It's a set of known and Microsoft defined, it's a schema for business entities, starting from the CRM world, but not only the CRM world, like sales and others. It also provides industry-specific entities for instance, healthcare and nonprofit and others, and it keeps expanding over and over again. And that kind of basis is what right now, for instance, the entire dynamic stack in Microsoft is being aligned to in terms of how the entities are mapped. And also the Power Platform. For instance, Power Apps saves the info in CDS in CDM format. So we are aligning to that in the sense that if you want to now bring in data, either from Dynamics 365, you'll get that automatic mapping even into CDM. But also if you want to bring data from your SQL database, you can actually go through a quick mapping experience where you're going to say that this table maps to an account. And what it actually means that later on when you'll want to build reports on top of those entities, it's transparent if that data was actually populated from a database or from CRM. It's account, you know what fields to expect in that entity, and it's simplified for the report layer building. The ability to reuse the data. So data lands in the storage that we provide you, the data that you prep. You can actually reuse it over and over again, both from models that you build on top by connecting to data flows from the desktop, and also by leveraging it in other data flows. So if you have a data flow that preps and brings in your sales data, and let's imagine that you have another data flow that preps and brings in data that reflects your service calls from the service ticket system. Obviously, you could have done that in one data flow and merged from two data sources, but you want to keep it clean and manage your ETL project in an organized way. So you'll have a data flow per each, but then you can have a third data flow that actually links to them both and performs additional computations and enrichments and generates insights out of merging these. Like for instance, for which account in my sales data did I have the most amount of escalations of service tickets in the past month? So the ability to reuse data over and over. And the experiences that we give for data flow, as you will see in a second, the demo, is an integral part of Power BI. A data flow is a new artifact within Power BI, similar to data sets and reports and dashboards. You can manage data flows within Power BI. You create those within Power BI. You set their refresh schedule within Power BI. You monitor their consumption and the refresh health within Power BI. So it's not a separate tool anymore. It's not the hybrid solutions from before. You get a one-stop shop in Power BI, all the way from your data sources through data prep, through modeling, and up to visuals. The ability to have incremental refresh. So for those of you familiar with data sets, that's available for data sets as well today. When you want to handle really large scales of data that you want to bring in and ingest, it just doesn't make sense, and it's not effective to bring in every time the full stack of the data again. So with incremental refresh, you can define that after that first ingestion, you can just bring in the increment or the delta every day or every refresh, adding those new rows that were added, but not bringing in all that existing data and copying it over again. And for the last item that was important to us was, we call it Excel-like auto recalc, but I'll explain what that means. It actually means that when you have that aspect of data reuse and dependencies between data flows that you create as part of creating a more complex ETL project, leveraging data flows and links between them, we actually take care of the dependency management for you. And if I mentioned earlier that with systems today, you need to sort of design the system and take care of the architecture and then take care of the dependency logic and refreshes between them. In the example that I gave earlier of bringing in sales data and services data and then creating a third data flow that leverages the data from both those data flows and yields new insights that are specific to sales and services combined, I don't have to take care, or you don't have to take care of refreshing or aligning the refresh of that combined sales and services data flow once the original data flows have been refreshed. We take care of updating the dependency chain for you. That means if data flow B is dependent on data flow A and A has now refreshed, we'll trigger B for you without you having to align refresh schedules and so forth. So just in a nutshell, and we'll get to the next level after the demo because there is additional value here, but just in a nutshell, these are the first things that we wanted to solve for you, looking at precisely the challenges that I mentioned earlier. And so those reflect in what data flow means in like 60 seconds. And if you need to have a visual now in front of you again, so we've added that layer of data flows for your data prep logic, and all the data is actually stored in a central storage that Power BI provides you. And behind the scenes, that is actually Azure Data Lake or Azure Data Lake Gen 2, which is now being released. And we abstract that entirely for you. So you as a Power BI user are not required to have an Azure subscription or add any cost to that. We bring these two new building blocks out of the box. So I've talked enough. I think we should help you visualize and understand what this all means. And I'd like to move on to a demo to show some of these new capabilities. I'll move on to Anton to present that.
Thank you, Adi. So let me share my screen now. So let me know when you can see my screen, just for a second. Oh, perfect. So, hi everybody. My name is Anton. Adi, can you mute yourself? Yeah. So my name is Anton, and I will now follow up on what Adi just described you, what we are trying to achieve, and I will show you what we already have. So as you probably know, data flows are in public preview. So basically everybody that has Power BI can try it out. So in this demo, I will show you the scenarios that was mentioned before about, hey, how do I take my CRM data, bring it to Power BI? How do I bring my service call data from different sources? And how do I create a mashup between them in order to create a new insight, all using Power BI data flows? So first, we'll start with bringing in the data. So here is in my workspace, I have dashboards, reports, workbooks, dataset, and this is new dataflows preview. To create a new data flow, I go to create and choose data flow. And let's click on new entity. And now, so we are leveraging Power Query. So this is like one of the great things with data flows, that we are adding additional capability to do heavy lifting data processing and analysis, but still it's with the same tools that you use in data sets and Power BI in general. So currently we have 25 connectors available, and we are adding new connectors all the time. So more and more connectors will light up as we go. For this demo, I will start with bringing my CRM data from my SQL server on Azure. I'm specifying the server, specifying the database, and moving next. And the next thing that I will see is the tables that I have in this database. So for this demo, I would like to pull my accounts data. Yeah, this looks good. And now what we can see here is the Power Query experience that we all love. And yeah, and now I can do many of the things that I can do in Power Query Desktop here online to edit this query. So first of all, let's remove some of the unnecessary columns. And later I will show additional transformations that we can do. Okay, so I organize this. I can change the table name. And one of the great things that I can leverage now is the common data model. So Microsoft works on creating this schema, so to help you organize your data and align the data that's coming from different sources in one place. So currently we have more than 100 entities available of different types. This one is, fits well to what we are looking now, which is account table. Basically, there is a sort of smart string matching between the columns that I have in my table and the columns that are specified in the schema. So I can actually choose and map my accounts table to this schema. So, so this is like going to be our first data flow that ingests accounts data. Let me just move now to refresh. So as I mentioned before, when you're doing refresh, you want to have a lot of data in Power BI, but you don't want to bring all the data all the time. So we're introducing this data flows incremental refresh, which actually enables you to choose any field to decide about the time, and you can also choose the time period. So basically, if I want to have a data in data flows for 5 years, I can do it, and I can set the refresh setting to 1 day. So basically, what will happen is that every day I will have a refresh that will take the last day, and I will always have 5 years of data in Power BI. So I don't waste my resources, and my refresh is lean because I bring only the data that I need, but I still have all the data that I need for refresh. Another setting that, another setting that we have is, of course, scheduled refresh. So, sorry. Okay, so let me just save this data flow. This is going to be ingest CRM data. So this is my first data flow. And I can set a scheduled refresh. And basically, as similar to data sets, I can schedule refresh. If I'm using Pro license, I will have up to 8 refreshes per day. And if I have premium capacity, I can schedule up to 48 refreshes. So I have this data flow. Let's save it again. Let's close it. Let's refresh it. to bring in the data. So we have this data coming in, and this is the first step. So, and as I mentioned, we want to bring here now CRM data and also combine it with service call data. So for this, I will create a new data flow, and I will bring now my service call data from Azure, from a file that I stored on Azure Blob. So here's another connector, which is a file connector. I paste here the file path. And have this data loaded. And as mentioned before, so it's Power Query. We have many of the stuff that we know and love in Power Query here in dataflows as well. So we can use the first row as headers. Let's change the name to service calls so we can identify it later. And done. So we have now two data flows. One that ingests CRM data and the other one that brings service calls data. Let's save this guy again. Okay. Nice. Let's refresh it as well. So the next step for me is going to be, okay, I'm building my ETL solution, and I have now two data flows, one that has CRM data and one that has service call data. Now I would like to show you the power of data flows to be able to take data that's coming from two different data flows without copying it and do a computation on top of it. So for this, I will create a third data flow, which is going to be data flow for my computation. So I'm clicked here on linked entities. So this is another great thing that we have with data flows. So you ingested the data once, you now can reuse it and connect to the data that you already ingested in other data flows in order to create these calculations. So here I'm in Contoso CRM. I have two data flows. One is ingest CRM, which has accounts. The one and the other one is ingest service call that has service call. Cool. Let's bring them in. So here you can see that these entities have a linked entity sign, and this information is read-only. So I'm not copying it again. I'm now only referencing to it from already existing data flows. And now let's do some computation. So let's reference service calls. And here in this service calls table, I have per each call, I have the account ID and the call date. And now what I would like to do is actually to do some aggregation to calculate how much calls happen per account ID. So for this purpose, I will do group by. This is yet another computation that we can do with Power Query in data flows. And I will create a new aggregated count of calls table column. So here I have now a preview of the calculation. Per account ID, I have the count of calls. And let's call this service calls aggregated. Excellent. Now I would like to enrich the accounts table that I have with the aggregated service calls data. So how would I do this? I will go to combine tables and will use merge queries as new. And I will merge between the accounts tables. that has account ID, and the service calls aggregated table that also has account ID. And what we can see here, I have a new merge table. I have service calls aggregated here. Sorry, let's go back to. So let's just repeat this step again. So I have this accounts with service calls. This is the name of the table. And what I would like to do here is actually to take only the count of calls. So now I have so enriched my accounts table coming from my CRM system with service calls data coming from whatever system I'm using for tracking service calls, and I have this new column in the table. Cool. And let's now save this data flow. Let's call it enriched accounts. And let's refresh it now. So great. So here, so to recap, I did my data prep steps. I brought the data from my CRM system, brought the data from my service call system. I cleaned each of the feeds, and then I created a third data flow, which is actually enriching the accounts data from one system with service call data from another system, and I have this in data flows. The next step for me is to use it in my report. So here I am in Power BI Desktop. And now you have in Power BI Desktop also a data flow connector. To see it, you go to Get Data. Under Power BI section, you have Power BI Datasets and Power BI Data Flows Beta, which is the data flows connector. And here you will see all the workspaces that you have data flows in, and the data flows there. So in Contoso CRM, I see I have 3 data flows. One is enriched account, one is in just CRM, and one in just service calls. And let's use our tables that we created, accounts with service calls. Let's just load this data. And so at this point, all the data that I prepped with data flows is available for me for reporting. So, and I don't need to bring all the raw data that I collected from the source systems. I can bring only the cleaned, aggregated, what we call prepared data, and build the reports on top of it. So, and now I would like to build a report that will help me to understand which are the customers that having the most service calls, and maybe to engage them proactively. So here I have the report. I see that Antonio Moreno is a customer that has tons of service calls in the last few days. I probably want to engage with him. So this is a reporting piece. And one more piece that I want to show you regarding data flows in the service is the smartness of the linked entities refresh.
And Anton, Martin Hale was asking, where do you set up the relationships for data flows?
So relationships for data flows are defined by, let me understand the question. So if you're talking about importing relationship from the source system to data flows, this is something that is on our backlog, and we will address it. If between data flows themselves, the linkage between the entities, this is what defines the relationship between the different data flows. And this is exactly what I would like to show here. So if you remember, so I have ingest CRM data and ingest service calls and enrich accounts that using entities from these two data flows. So if, for instance, I'm refreshing now ingest service calls, because you can see now that I have also started the refresh in enrich accounts. So this is like the Excel-like behavior. Once the source of the linked entity is refreshed, also all the calculation down the stream refreshed as well. So you will have always the most up-to-date data in your downstream data flow. And when the data set refresh against the data flow, then you will have the most up-to-date data in your report. So that's it for the demo. Adi, back to you. Or if there are any other questions that, Chuck, if you want me to answer additional questions, go ahead.
Oh yeah, as Adi is rejoining us, there's a couple questions on. Oh, let me just ask there. Sahel and oh God, was it Justin? So a couple of people have asked, when could they go out and add additional data sources? So when you went out and add entities, you had a finite list. There was a couple questions about can people expand that list to be the connectors that they want to use?
So it's being worked on as we speak. The current list is a subset of the data sources supported in Power Query and desktop, and it's actively being worked on. So data sources will light up ongoing from now, from now on. We have a backlog we're working through, but be sure, and this is a general ask to all of you out there, help us prioritize our work. Get into the community. You can post relevant questions under the Power BI service board tagged with data flows, as well as post new ideas or asks. If you want one of the data sources to light up first or another feature to light up, add that to the ideas. And we'll go through those regularly. And we will give higher precedence to the things that are voted highly. Okay.
Yeah, and I want to second that. You guys have done a great job on ideas.powerbi.com triaging your category. I see you're on out there every day. So thank you for that. So yeah, go to ideas.powerbi.com. Make sure and get their ideas in there because the stream does use that as their backlog. Sorry, Adi, continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So if that's okay, I'll continue now with the slides, and if we have time later on, then happy to help with more questions. And alternatively, you can reach us on community. Okay. So let me share my screen and back to full screen. Let me know if you see the deck.
Not yet. We see a talking Adi icon. We are not seeing anything just yet.
Okay.
No, now we see your screen. Now we see the deck. And
okay,
if you click
let
on
me
that
hide this.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Adi.
Reading your mind there, Chuck. So, okay, so just recapping the demo quickly before we move on of what Anton demoed. So you could actually see how he brought in sales data into storage, brought it once, created that creating a data flows within Power BI in the native Power BI experience, leveraging Power Query online, performing those transformations and data cleansing, leveraging Power Query. He was able to map to the common data model. And again, just to mention on that, you're not obligated to map to the common data model. You can land entities in their custom structure, and they will be perceived as a custom entity and not a standard entity. But if you land them and map them as a common data model and map to the common data model, you can just do that much more in terms of building reports and knowing what sort of structure to expect in each of your business entities. He scheduled refresh to be able to refresh that, and we support both full and incremental refresh. And then bringing in the sales and the service calls later on to leverage insights on top of those. He was actually able to use linked entities and reuse data from other departments, perform those in-lake transforms while we take care of the dependency logic and sort of the recalc, very similar to how in Excel, when you have a cell referring to another cell, the formulas will get updated. And later, and last but not least, being able to build models on that from Power BI app. Just one point on that before we move on. Everything that you've seen here, data flows in general are available for both pro licenses and premium licenses. With premium and dedicated capacity, you get those things that require more capacity, such as the incremental refresh or the ability to perform in-lake transforms and linked entities to data that exists within the storage. Mentioning one question as it's been raised several times in previous discussions, if the only thing that you want to do, for instance, if you're now bringing in queries that you've used previously in data sets in Power Query, and you want to reference another query during ingestion of the data before actually loading that, you can do that. Anton didn't show that, I believe, but you can just, when you want to reference another entity, just mark that first it's unloaded, such that you're not saving that data yet, you're doing that on ingestion, and then you can reference that query. We're not requiring premium for that. For the linked entities, which is a more advanced capability of managing your complex ETL projects and having those references between data flows, that does require premium right now. But those reference queries, as you've used in desktop until today, are totally enabled. So moving on, and just this is sort of the mental model I want you all to have in mind before I move on. Imagine that you have data sources in different structures and schemas, and leveraging our data prep logic that you build with data flows, you can actually land all that data in potentially a standard schema, leveraging common data model, in different data flows into one central ADLS, Azure Data Lake Storage, that we provide you. And then if you want to go even further and have those complex ETL projects, you can link between data flows and you can perform those in-lake transforms. And later on, you can just connect data sets to data flows, connect multiple data sets to the same data flow, and obviously build your reports and dashboards on them. So just wanted you to have this sort of mental model in mind. So I believe we've answered a lot of the challenges that I mentioned earlier, being able to unify your data into one location, having a lot of these capabilities as more of a self-service thing with Power Query, creating potentially semantic consistency with the common data model, and having this all in once in Power BI with the complex system integration. And that's a recap of that. So I want to move forward, and we're short on time, so I'll try to cover it all. But you know, until now, we've shown a lot of awesome and new capabilities within Power BI, and if that's where you live as a business analyst, and that's enough for your day-to-day insights yielding, that's awesome. And the value that we bring there, as by the way, shared already by a lot of the private preview customers that we've had, is substantial. But what if you want to do more? What if you want to actually leverage all that data that we've stored into storage for you, created by your data flow logic with your self-service tools, and actually want to leverage that data and share that with other applications or services? So what do I have in mind? For instance, if you have a lot of data, your CRM data and others landing into your storage, and you want to actually now connect it with Azure ML to add some machine learning on top of that, or for big data connected with Databricks, or leverage ADF because you want to orchestrate or move it elsewhere, or SQL DW. How do you actually access that data? Because right now it's part of a black box within Power BI. You don't have access to that. So we've thought of that aspect as well, and we actually allow Power BI admins to be able to configure Power BI to save the data flow data in their own selected organizational Azure Data Lake storage. So I'll go quickly through a few screens, but they can actually add a storage connecting to their own organizational Azure Data Lake storage. And then they'd be able to actually enable workspace admins that they want to empower to say where they can save that data. And those admins would, for their workspace owners, would be able, when they create a workspace, to actually say if they want to save that data for their workspace, their data flows, in the built-in Power BI storage or into their organizational Azure Data Lake storage. And when they do that, what they essentially do is now bridge that gap and have Power BI with the data flows and data sets and reporting be able to operate on the same data with all those Azure services. And if you look at what we bring together, they actually connect between those business analysts who can save data into Azure Data Lake storage, leveraging Power Query and the data flows experience, connect them with those data scientists and data engineers that live more within the Azure realm and now can handshake on the data and enrich it that much more. Now, how is that done? So I want to introduce a concept named Cdm Folder. And that actually means just the structure with which we save the data in the Azure Data Lake storage. So it's a known model. As part of our documentation soon, we will release the structure for that as well, and libraries to read and write that. And that actually means that even you within your organization can now create those CDM folders. But obviously for these Azure services and for Power BI, we will take care of that for you. So Power BI knows how to read and write CDM folders, and ADF and Databricks and Data Warehouse and Azure ML and others are all aligning to that structure and adding that support now. So just what is CDM and CDM folder? It actually describes that folder structure. It's a JSON file at the end of the day. And it just describes that semantic information of the metadata and then relevant data files that are saved along with it. Right? So just imagine that use case that Anton showed earlier of bringing in sales and service calls and being able to leverage insights on top of that with Power BI. You could now imagine that with the CDM folder that we created behind the scenes in the Azure Data Lake storage, now a data scientist or data engineer can come and enrich it further. For instance, add a model, an Azure model, machine learning model to perform sentiment analysis on that service calls data, and then enrich back the report in Power BI or within other apps. So I've shown how we can enable Power BI tenant admins to leverage the data created by data flows in other applications on services. Now, what about the other direction, right? If we want to help you provide an easy way to actually bring new data into Azure such that you can later connect it to analytics, to Power BI. So it's actually the other way around. And I wanted to show you a live example of that, or one of the examples. We have a lot of apps both within Microsoft and externally ISVs who are lining up to that now. So I'm taking as an example the Dynamics 365 for finance and operations team, which is building their own app right now. And they actually create today data in the CDM folder structure aligned to the model that we've defined. And leveraging the Power BI API, they just hook it up to Power BI and then show analytics on top of that within their Power BI embedded experience. So the Dynamics 365 customers can actually see Power BI visualizations and analytics on top of this stack. Right. So obviously, in addition to all of these, we provide all the developer resources such as APIs, samples, documentation, precisely so that ISVs or custom lines of business can leverage this entire platform to hook data between Power BI and others. And if we want to just do a quick recap of what's that loop that you can close for your use cases as well, and taking F&O as an example, but not just them. So you can create a data flow in Power BI. You can move your data flow to your own organizational Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Utilize the power of Azure to enrich that data even further, or leverage it for other usage that you have in mind. You can write it back folder in the structure and then use it again in Power BI for your analytics. And to close on the programmability aspect, as I mentioned, we provide developer resources as well in terms of APIs and SDK and documentation. Now, that entire aspect of the Azure integration that I just presented has not been released as part of the public preview last week, but is planned for the very near future. So you will have it, and stay tuned for an announcement, because it is coming within a matter of weeks.
That's great,
yeah,
Addie.
That's it for me, and happy to answer some questions now. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Okay, Yoran actually has joined, and him and Anton have done a great job. But you might want to actually do one for the audio recording. Is that Megan was asking, how is security implemented? And it was Scott Powell and a couple of people have actually asked that earlier on. So if I didn't call out your name, so how is security done in data flows?
So in data flow currently, So currently for data flows, you can access data flow only if you have access to the workspace where you created the data flow. So the current model is if you want only certain people to be able to access the data in specific data flows, so you, like for ingestion piece, so you can create workspace for team A, and they can do all the ingestion and get the injection. And then is workspace B, which will link to workspace A with linked entities for the information that you want to be available for wider audience.
Makes perfect sense. Both Ann Gush and Naos have asked questions around connecting back into Azure Data Lake. One was a licensing question. One was actually a UI question around how will they know if they're connected back into the data lake? Is there some sort of hint to saying I'm connected to my subscription versus actually a local entity? And the other question is around, is that going to be available to premium users, or do I have to have an additional license, or how does that work? So why don't you talk a little bit more about the data lake stuff that Addie just covered?
Sure. So first of all, connecting back to Azure Data Lake is not just a premium capability. All pro licenses get that as well. Obviously, you need an Azure subscription as you're bringing in your Azure Data Lake. So it's just about having a Power BI license for that piece and your Azure license for that. No additional license is required. In terms of management and knowing whether you're connected or not. So once we introduce these experiences in the very near future, obviously the tenant admins will know which storages are connected to their tenant in general, and we will have that piece of experience. And for specific workspaces which were assigned, then the owner will know that as well and have that as part of the workspace settings.
That makes perfect sense. We have about 2 minutes left, and I want to give it back to you guys to finish. Scott Powell asked earlier on, and I think we've answered this question a couple times, but just to make sure, I want to make sure I understand the difference between a regular data set and these data flows. So I think we've answered the question, but why don't you go ahead and finish with that, and go ahead and finish the recording, both Anton and Addie, and we'll stop it from there. Thank you very much for you doing this.
Sure. So just to answer that question, and it's a long answer, but I'll try to keep it short. Imagine it exactly as the layers I showed you earlier. So today, you're correct that a lot of prepping the data was done over and over within data sets. But imagine that you can actually have that all in a lower layer of how you choose to prep your data and land that into your central storage, and then leverage it for your data sets, which should serve for modeling. And for helping to build those reports on top of that. It also means that while you prep your data and land it into the storage, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to bring all those gigas of data into your data sets every time. It's enough that you prep your data and then create or link a data flow to it with computed entities and create sort of an aggregated data flow that has just the insights that you want for your report building, and then you'll bring that into your modeling and your data set without having to copy over all that data into your data sets every time.
That makes perfect sense. Why don't you say goodbye, and we'll go ahead and finish the webinar.
Sure.
Anton, and you're on.
Thank
You very much, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Again, check out our blog documentation published last week, white paper. You can access those, and happy to hear your input on community and versus ideas.
Thank you.